This is getting kind of ridiculous, and I'm not talking about the lineups. I'm talking about the fan response to all of this, man. Really. We had news from earlier this morning via Arber Xhekaj and a bunch of other people in the Canadiens beat that Arber Xhekaj, he's not going to play. Most likely not going to play. Patrick Friolet said that he was skating with the scratches earlier this morning. So, Dobesh, Pezzetta, Kapanen, the same dudes, it seems like. He also had Arber Xhekaj go out there and say that there's no changes to the Habs lines or defense pairings at Habs practice. Thus, kind of validating the idea that Arber Xhekaj, the Sheriff, Wi-Fi, is probably not in today. And I'm not saying that it's ridiculous that Arber Xhekaj is not in. I can understand the perspective that says, hey, the Washington Capitals had a really big physical advantage in Game 1 against Montreal, so in order to combat that, in order to bring the fire to the fire, as Pierre Maguire put it on the Sick podcast with Tony Marinaro, you want to fight fire with fire, so if you get pushed around, you get the Xhekaj guy back in there and he pushes the other team around. It's kind of a cycle, right? Well, the thing is, because that's not happening, we are seeing a various amount of responses all over social media that I think are getting a little bit out of hand. Let's look at Marty St. Louis' press conference from earlier yesterday, not seeming to enjoy the number of questions about Arber Xhekaj. His answer and his looks as he walks away says a lot. I know what you guys are trying to get me to answer. I have Xhekaj. It's a card. I might play him. I don't know yet. It's good to have. And admittedly, he does look pretty annoyed when answering questions about Arber Xhekaj. That is not what I'm saying is ridiculous here. Instead, I wanted to talk about the response to this. The top reply here says that Marty St. Louis never liked Arber Xhekaj's instant popularity. He calls him Jacko and said his nickname wasn't the Sheriff. That says it all. St. Louis prefers the elite players who make pubs for big corporations than the ones who do it for a portion that goes to charity. Okay, what in the world does that even mean? You have folks on Twitter saying that Marty St. Louis needs to be fired because Arber Xhekaj is not being tossed into the lineup. Another reply here says that St. Louis is very stubborn and he cannot see through the fog that he is blinded by. Arber must play if the chance is there. And then there are a bunch of other topics here. It was posted about on Sportsnet earlier yesterday how Arber Xhekaj could help the Canadiens gain a physical edge. This was an article by Arber Xhekaj. Okay, like you could go out there, make an article talking about it. Some of the replies over here, St. Louis plays Demidov less than when Demidov played in SKA, and he scratches Xhekaj against a team throwing 20 hits a period. Marty St. Louis gotta wake up. Just in my humble opinion, I think folks are really starting to overreact to Marty St. Louis not playing Arber Xhekaj and rolling with the decor that he has. St. Louis answered a question about this yesterday. He said essentially, yeah, like you have to evaluate, is one guy more valuable than the players that we have out there on the ice? Do they give us a better chance to win? You have to really dive into that. For Jayden Struble, he plays well with David Savard, for example. For Arber Xhekaj, he provides physical value, but he isn't really great everywhere else. There's a lot of opportunity here for Montreal to gain the upper hand with the decor that's already on the ice, and as it's talked about on several social media places, I don't necessarily know if Arber Xhekaj's absence was the reason the Habs ended up losing. Sure, it's an external part of the conversation that is incorporated into the game, but I think, as a lot of other fans are going out there and talking about, the real problem for Montreal, we already talked about it yesterday. It was that Demidov Laine Newhook line, getting absolutely caved in and not having any positive advantages in terms of their overall impact. They just didn't look good together. The Capitals were shutting down Ivan Demidov. Maybe that plays into why St. Louis didn't play him as often in this game. Like, okay, the opposing team is really putting in effort to take this guy and throw him off his game, so we're just not going to play him as often. We'll just throw that Suzuki line out there more. And the Suzuki, Caulfield, Slavkovsky line absolutely outchanced the Capitals in a significant capacity in Game 1. As we had talked about yesterday, the new hook line got caved in. Total mismatch. Line A new hook, Demidov not doing too hot. Now, I get it. You can say that, hey, there haven't been many roster changes in general, so that line is still going to be there. Marty St. Louis, what are you doing? And I think this is where fans start to get a little bit, maybe entitled is the right word to use. I don't know. You can let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. The reason I say that is because, okay, let me just use a Reddit post. This was a post made on our Habs earlier this morning. It's the same Marty St. Louis needs to be fired tweet, but there's a reply that goes out there and defends St. Louis in a way that I think is really illuminating. Talk Canadiens said that St. Louis needs to be fired, and Habs Nation says, just a reminder, Marty St. Louis took the second youngest team in the NHL into the playoffs and made history by becoming the youngest team ever to reach the NHL postseason. Facts. People who doubt Marty St. Louis have no idea what they're talking about. Take a look at the big picture here, guys. It's bonus hockey for Montreal. They weren't supposed to make the gosh darn playoffs. They were supposed to find a way to remain competitive and have meaningful games and march down the stretch and potentially miss out and draft 10th overall. That is what the Canadiens were supposed to do this year. The Canadiens were not even supposed to get Demidov. They were not supposed to get half the great things that they got this season, but they got him. They were 31st in the NHL on December 1st, something like that, and then they clawed their way back after the Four Nations break. They were stellar. Nick Suzuki was a superstar. He still is a superstar. And then they made the playoffs. Folks, it's bonus hockey, and I get that you can say, now that we're here, it's hard not to be disappointed with the way the lineup is being assembled, but come on, calling for St. Louis to be fired? Bruh. That's not in the cards here. Like, they made the gosh darn playoffs. Nobody thought they would do that. St. Louis could honestly get some Jack Adams votes with the way that he brought his team back out of the shadows here. Now, you can say that he doesn't really deserve any Jack Adams votes because his team was down in the gutter 31st overall in the first place. It's possible you could say that makes sense, but this team is going to be fine. Whether Xhekaj is in the lineup or out of the lineup, I'm totally not really all too attached to it. If the Canadiens get absolutely pushed around and shoved around in Game 2, and they don't have a dying chance of making that game competitive without the physical edge, then okay, we'll probably see Xhekaj, we'll probably see St. Louis use that card. But you gotta remember, folks, in Game 1, the Habs were one shot away. They lost in overtime. If the Montreal Canadiens won Game 1, we wouldn't be having this conversation. It'd be like, oh yeah, okay, great, the lineup won, keep it the same. Sure, they got pushed around a little bit, but they clawed back, and that's what everybody's gonna be talking about. The narrative changed so much just because they lost in overtime. That was a close game, folks. No reason to panic here. So, this is getting ridiculous in my opinion, but I want you to let me know your thoughts in the comment section below about some folks, in my opinion, overreacting to Marty St. Louis not tossing Xhekaj into the lineup, saying that he needs to get fired, he doesn't know what he's doing. Like, okay guys, come on. Come on. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below about this entire Xhekaj conversation. I hope you enjoyed this video. Zayne, and bye.